What's going on, everybody? I'm Tom.
I'm Pat.
And I'm Zach.
We're best friends, and you're listening to the Reminiscent Podcast. They say you can't choose your family. Well, you also can't choose which era of music you grew up in. This is a weekly show where we discuss our favorite bands from adolescence and how they continue to shape our lives today. Each week, we'll head back to the early 2000s and take a closer look at the cards we were dealt. What's going on, everybody? Tom here. I am alone this week. I regrettably put out a tweet maybe an hour ago, saying that there wouldn't be an episode this week. Didn't really want to let that happen since it's been 120 or so episodes without missing a week, even through severe illness, each of our weddings, honeymoons, moving across the country, moving house like 5 times during the course of this podcast. I just couldn't let that happen. But basically, I'm not really allowed to share too many details, but I went to Las Vegas Monday and Tuesday to interview Spencer Sotelo of Periphery. He's kind of a buddy of mine. We worked together with Taylor Larson. It would have been about 5 years ago at this point. I was assisting with drum and vocal editing for Taylor, and Periphery happened to be recording their albums Alpha and Omega right next door. So Spencer was kind of around a lot, and we kind of just became friends. You know, we both loved Zelda, kind of bonded over that, and I recently reached out to him when their new song Blood Eagle came out, and just thought like, hey man, we should talk about this on the show. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So he invited me down to Vegas to record an interview, and we had a really good time. Oh, he just texted me now. We had a really good time the night before we were supposed to record. We actually met up with like with the founding member of Creed, their old drummer, and someone who drums for Blue Man Group. It was just like the most, I want to say it was like the most Vegas night, but it really wasn't. It was super calm. We like went to dinner. I tried Wagyu beef for the first time. I've never seen prices like this at a restaurant, and just it was a ton of fun. But the next morning, just some things came up and we couldn't do the interview, and I was kind of left without any content for this week, which is super regrettable. Like, I feel super bad about that. It's still going to happen. He's texting me right now. We're rescheduling for April around the time when the whole album comes out. So we're going to kind of plan for that. But for this week, I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, that our anti-novel, Ron Carnage, the Thinker Boy, is going so well. We got like the final edits done. I'm formatting it for print right now, which means pre-orders for print will be up soon. And I'm so excited. We've been working on this project for I guess it would be about 18 months, because I know we originally submitted it to some publishers. It was a year ago, about 13 months ago. It was a totally different book than it is now. We should not have been submitting to publishers. I'll say that. Like, it's come so far since then. And I think I might read a little bit of the book to you in a minute. Not as filler, just we are so excited about this, and I just want people to hear it. When I was in Vegas, I did this really cool thing. One of our characters, Gene the Nerdy Octopus, which we have an illustration of done by Cameron McCafferty, I took him with me. I happened to have like a test print from when I was getting it framed for Pat, and I found it in my bookshelf when I was looking for some books to bring on the plane. And I brought him around with me and just kind of took some video of him in different places in Vegas, because in the story, he spends some time in Vegas. He's from LA as kind of this struggling character actor, but he goes to Vegas to kind of blow off some steam, gamble a little bit. And yeah, it was so great. The first thing I did was I stopped at the Welcome to Vegas sign and I got a photo with this Elvis impersonator. That was like the saddest thing ever. He was like really overweight. His like white shirt that he was, his whole outfit was like kind of white. It was so dirty The guy didn't even talk in an Elvis accent. He was just like, "Hey, where's my tip?" Like, it was the saddest thing ever. But I got a photo of him holding Gene with the Vegas sign. There were these showgirls that were walking around in like these, scantily clad outfits, like basically like thong jumpsuits with like tassels and everything, and these big like pink tails. I was crossing the street and I'm wearing my sequin jacket because it's like my favorite thing now. I somehow own 3 of them. And they're like, "Hey, I like your jacket." I was like, "Hey, I like your get up or whatever. Like, you want to take a picture with us?" So I was like, "No, but like, can you hold this picture?" Like, I know it's a weird request, but they did. And when they handed it back, the one girl was like, "Usually people tip us $20 each." And I was like, "Holy shit." Like, I have $5 on me. And it's like, "Well, do you have like a 20 we could split then?" I was like, I think I have another 5. And I reached into my pocket and I accidentally pulled out a 20. And I swear to Christ, this lady grabbed that 20 out of my hands so fast and just walked away. Like, it was so insane. But I got the picture. It was a video. I can honestly say the video was worth the $20. But that's up on our Twitter. It's on our Instagram. We'll put a link in the show notes. Just a really good time. We did it during the day. Got a few things at night. And yeah, met some new people, made some friends, and just got to hang out with Spencer, which is a lot of fun. Like I said, it's been a long time since I saw him. It was cool to hear about things with the band and kind of tell him about my journey since I've been working with Taylor. And, Spencer, he did a lot of the vocal production at Taylor's studio. So he really kind of walked me through a lot of his like comping and editing processes. And it was cool to like thank him personally for like setting me up for this career of podcast production. And, at the time that this show goes out, I'll have 2 more days left at Tesla. I'm looking at my schedule and they are killing me these next 2 days. I thought about calling my boss and being like, "Yo, someone ran over my dog. Like, I can't go to work." Like, anything to get out of working, because it's going to be real bad. And I just want everything to start now. Like, I'm so impatient seeing the light, like being able to reach out and barely touch it. And I can't wait for it to be over. But I'm going to try to power through and just get it done, whatever. But been working on a lot of things, going to Orlando in a couple weeks to officially launch my new podcast. It's called Podcast Me Anything. It's probably not for this crowd, but it's like a Q&A podcast with me and this guy Matthew that I work with. He's a really brilliant podcast professional. He's been doing it for like 10 years. And we're just basically going to take questions and answer them and talk about news and upcoming topics with Apple Podcasts and just the industry in general. And it should be a good time. So I'll put a link in the show notes for that new podcast. It's going to be my 3rd one. I'm thinking about starting a 4th. I honestly just want to do a Taylor Swift podcast. I don't know if you've seen her subreddit lately, but people are going crazy over all these conspiracies for the new album TS7. It's rumored that there's going to be a new Taylor Swift song on the day that this comes out on Friday, and I'm kind of freaking out. I'm going to have all my notifications on for my phone then to make sure I don't miss it. But there's been a lot going on. I know the same with Pat. I mean, we're both working on this book like crazy. And I mean, so much so that we haven't even had time to record new episodes of Carnage, which is unfortunate because so much is happening. But we got the release in 2 weeks. Struggling to get everything done by then, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got some people we're sending it out to. We've been tweeting at people who helped us, who kind of inspired the writing process, people that are important in our lives. And, it always amazes me how celebrities are so willing to respond to people and like send us their PO box or their personal home address to like send a copy of the book to them. It's pretty wild. So we're hoping things will go well with that. But Other than that, I mean, nothing like too huge coming up with the podcast. Like we said, we're going to be trying to do a monthly kind of bonus episode where we bring on a guest. We've got emails out to some pretty incredible people. We're recording one next week with someone Pat actually introduced me to. I'd never heard of him, but he's this musician that writes these kind of like joke songs, and he writes up to like, I think it said like 20 to 50 songs a day, and he'll put them on Spotify, and he has like 30,000 songs up there. He's going to come on and talk about some music with us. We've got, again, Spencer Sotelo, the singer of Periphery, is going to be coming on again. We're rescheduling that. We've got some other incredible stuff in the works. So what I'm going to leave you all with is maybe, let's see, we'll do the first 3 chapters of Ron Carnage because it's good stuff, man. I'm really excited about this release. I've read this book probably 15 times and editing it and kind of making it better every time. And every time that I read it, the number of notes goes down. And this past time, I read all 250 pages and there were maybe 3 notes. So I think it's about ready, and I'm ready for the world to hear it. So without further ado, I am not a narrator, but I am going to read the first 3 chapters of Ron Carnage, The Thinker Boy, an antinovel by Aaron Matthew Matthews. Ron Carnage sat in his study and thought about taking a long drag of his pipe. He wasn't going to, as he doesn't smoke. The pipe was a treasure of sorts, a gift from an old friend from an adventure long, long ago. Ron was pretty set on the no smoking thing. That's not to say there would never be a situation in which he'd smoke, but it was highly unlikely. For example, if Ron was drafted to go to Vietnam in a parallel universe and they handed him a helmet and a pair of boots, and on top of that pile there was a pack of cowboy killers, and he was like, "Oh, I don't smoke," and the lieutenant stared right into his eyes with a gaze incapable of emotion and simply said, "You will." That's not to say he wouldn't light one up and take a drag a few months later when his best friend from the old neighborhood added another ear to his flesh necklace, but he, to this point, did not smoke, and he liked it that way. Yes, the pipe was a gift from an adventure a long time ago. Ron was a different person then. Son of Ronald Carnage, Ron nowadays was a roofer by trade, archer by necessity, and lute player by hobby. That is, in whatever time he had left in the day before he fought off the demons in his sleep. Ron had no wife, no daughter, and no son, but often wondered whether or not he'd name his boy Ronnie like his father did with him, or whether he'd call his son something like Nicholas. Perhaps he'd name the boy Ron Nicholas Carnage and call him Nicholas instead of Ron the Third. He figured he wouldn't do something like that, call a boy by his middle name his whole life, but rather just call the boy Nicholas in the first place, or stick with the Ron 3 thing instead of lying to yourself and everyone around you. Oh, the games we play. These were the thoughts that often helped Ron deal with the burden of existence. His mind wandered as it avoided the memories of a past life. Despite his name, Ron didn't care too much for Carnage, just the occasional lute playing at the local tavern, though as you may have guessed, he doesn't drink. Ron lived a quiet life now, keeping mostly to himself just outside Leon, his hometown. This was a perfectly normal night. That is, until it wasn't. A sudden flurry of knocks at the door cut through an otherwise silent room. Ron hadn't had a visitor in years. He walked over and paused for a moment before opening the door. It was a man in a hooded cloak. "I'm looking for the Thinker Boy," the man said. Thinker Boy was his nickname when he was a lad. Lil Ronnie, the Thinker Boy Carnage, and boy was he a thinker. In his youth, Ron was thinking all the damn time, thinking all sorts of "I haven't heard that name in a long time," said Ron. "A lifetime. And actually it's the strangest thing. I was just thinking about that, right over there in my chair. I don't go out much. I don't really smoke or drink. Man, what a crazy coincidence." "I see," said the man in the cloak. "Can I offer you a smoke?" Ron said. "Again, I don't smoke, but you certainly can. That pipe you see over there is just a gift." Man, really, I was just thinking about all these little details of my life. Like, it couldn't have been more than 40 seconds ago. "I don't mean to be a bother, sir," said the cloaked man interjected. "But could you help me find this Thinker Boy?" "Why, yes," said Ron. "You're looking at him." "Ronnie?" said the cloaked man. Mr. Carnage was confused. "You son of a bitch. It's me, Levi, one of your most loyal pals from the old neighborhood," said Levi, one of Ron's most loyal pals from the old neighborhood. You son of a bitch, said Ron. It's me, Ron. Well, I'll be, said Levi. Fucking hell. Fucking hell indeed, said Ron. An uncomfortable silence followed, both staring at each other, mouths open, but both taking labored breaths through their nostrils, despite their mouths being open. These were not empty moments, however. Waves of memories began to flood both of their brains. So much time had passed since their last adventure. You may be asking yourself, why did Levi come? How long had Ron lived this life of general solitude? Does Levi smoke or drink? Two things Ron Carnage doesn't usually partake in, as we've mentioned. Well, this isn't the end of the chapter, or the book for that matter, so you can carry on if you'd like. Little editor's note there. Ron Carnage and his oldest, most loyal friend from the old neighborhood, Levi, spent hours cracking wise and reminiscing. This was unusual for our thinker boy, who, lately, spent absolutely no time at all thinking about his past. Remember the nuns at St. James School for Boys near the cathedral? Levi asked. You son of a b****, said Ron. Boy, do I. Little note there, I went to St. James School, and this story actually happened to me, minus the crying. Do you remember when they told you that you needed to cut your hair, old boy? Said Levi. Yes, said Ron. And I, very respectfully, of course, asked them whether or not modern representations of Jesus Christ himself had long hair. The hypocrisy! What an absolute hoot. Indeed, said Levi. Son of a bitch, said Ron. Indeed, said Levi. The two paused for a moment to exhale from their laughter. I ran to the bathroom, said Ron. Oh, did you? Asked Levi. Yes, immediately after. I cried for hours. Oh, is that what happened? Asked Levi. Several hours, yes. F***ing hell, said Levi. Indeed, old boy. Indeed, said Ron. He and Levi caught their breath from the gut-busting laughter that comes with reminiscing with a dear friend. The two went on like this, sharing hearty chortles, considering the childish pranks of old they committed, as two old sons of bitches would. Smoke? Levi asked. You know I don't smoke, Ron said. You son of a bitch. Fucking hell, said Levi. I know. Levi, unlike Ron, was known to partake in a few drinks of alcoholic nature from time to time. Do you mind if we head down to the Fiddle Inn down the road, old boy? Said Levi. You know, Levi, that's something I'd like very much, said Ron. Ron and Levi headed down to the Fiddle Inn, a local tavern. The night was young, unlike our protagonists. You see, Ron and Levi were half-elves and had lived to see several centuries, more than either expected to in their youth, back when they ran around with very little knowledge of how their world worked. Ron and Levi spent many hours in their younger years strumming fiddles and lutes and the like with their good friend Flappy Murphy, Sr., who has since passed on. Fletcher Sr. served alongside Ron and Levi through many adventures, a gifted bare-knuckle boxer who spent many nights at the Fiddle Inn back when the bar hosted its Friday fight nights. But mortal blood ran through Fletcher's veins. His passing did not sit well with the thinker boy. Fortunately for Ron, Levi's presence allowed a faint feeling of joy to creep back into his life, and as the two of them arrived at the Fiddle Inn's door, they were filled with the brim of nostalgia. They knocked. Yes, said doorman/barkeep. We, with the utmost respect, request entrance, you son of a bitch, said Levi. Well, if it isn't Levi, said the doorman/barkeep, and I almost don't believe my own eyes. Is that Ron Carnage? The doorman/barkeep adjusted his spectacles. Well, I'd love to let you in, but I'm going to need a password. This is a speakeasy now. Just an unassuming speakeasy, owned and run by me, an unassuming doorman/barkeep, he said. The Fiddle Inn was not and had never been a speakeasy. Levi knew this. He and the doorman/barkeep were about to try and pull a fast one on the thinker boy. What's the password, old boy? Asked Levi, giving Ron's arm a nudge. Just give me a minute to think, old boy, said Ron. This is a life I left behind years ago. Think, thinker boy, think! Urged Levi, practically cheering. Ron peered up into the eyes of the doorman/barkeep, who was still looking through the slot. He paused, as if trying to comprehend what he was about to say. A sort of desert scape, said Mr. Carnage. What? Asked the doorman/barkeep. And there's an octopus, said Ron, almost painfully rubbing his eyes and trying to gather his thoughts once more. A nerdy octopus. And he's smoking a cigarette, but still nerdy. Like this is his first cigarette and you can tell. Real nerdy. Like glasses that are too big for his face or something. Ron, what? Asked the doorman/barkeep. Nerdy octopus, you heard the man, said Levi, patting Ron on the back. The eye slot closed. The door opened. Levi slipped a coin into the doorman/barkeep's pocket as he silently mouthed, "What the f*** was that?" "Just a pint," said Levi. "Keep the change." Ron sat next to the only person sitting at the bar. "Do I know you?" he asked. "Fletcher Murphy Jr.," said the man, "but you can call me Flappy." "No f***ing way," said Ron. "Yes f***ing way," said Levi, sitting down next to the thinker boy. "Flaps, my man, this is Ron Carnage. He knew your dad way back when." Like his father before him, Flappy sat at the bar with a dark liquor, and just like his father before him, there were about a dozen small empty glasses on the bar before the night was through. The three enjoyed their moment, but a danger lingered in the air, an inexplicable danger. This would be a night of peace and joy, but those feelings wouldn't last for long. Ron knew this, or at least he felt it, and as the drinks poured, he pondered what might have led Levi to his door earlier that morning. Chapter 2, An Incident at the Bridge. After joining Levi for a night at the Fiddle Inn, the thinker boy woke up in a thicket. With him as always, or at least for the past 12 hours, were Levi and Fletcher Flappy Murphy, the town drunk. They were thick as thieves, these three, and they were in a thicket at the moment, a sticky wicket, as it were. 2/3 of them were hungover and they were starving. Levi noticed an enticing berry. "Should we pick it?" he asked. "Not from this thicket," said Ron, "unless you want to be sick for a bit." Ron and Levi went along with Flappy, still drunk, following behind. Our heroes eventually found themselves at the Leon Bridges, of which there were two, spanning the great river that served as Leon's western border. Ron and his pals came up in Leon, a small working-class town with no real reputation to speak of other than a local legend regarding its proximity to a rumored fountain of youth. Though it had come to be known across the region as the birthplace of the Thinker Boy, Ron was not born famous. The bridges were the only forms of river passage for miles. As our trio got closer, an objectively shrill troll voice rang out from behind them. "Hey, why don't you all save us some time and hand over your coins now, you f***s?" A small roving gang of maybe half a dozen trolls armed with bedposts and the like snickered to themselves. One of the trolls broke wind. Unfortunately for our heroes, this did not ease any tension. It was instead super weirder now. Not only was the guilty party visibly sniffing and enjoying what he'd just done, the rest of the attackers were kind of into it more now. "It is not I who is the f***," said Flappy with confidence before pausing to realize how hungover he had become. "Is it thou?" Seemingly out of nowhere, the breeze picked up and dark clouds filled the sky. Flappy looked back at his companions for reassurance and noticed something strange. Ron's eyes had begun to glow. Chapter 3, Meanwhile, at the McGillicuddy's. Declan, or Mac McGillicuddy, puffed his pipe in front of a full-body mirror as he began to dress for the day. "So let me see if I had this right. A hooded figure is seen walking through town at dusk. A few hours later, some drunken idiots stumble out of the Fiddle Inn. And this morning, authorities find half a dozen bodies by the river. Have some guards checked out that thicket near the woods?" he said, a command meant for his life coach, Moto. Declan turned around to find that Moto, true to form, had gotten bored and walked out of the room before he'd finished talking. Mac took a puff of his pipe. As he took a puff of his pipe, his wife Molly McGillicuddy entered his chambers. She, too, was puffing her pipe. "Half a dozen dead by the river," Mac said, puffing his pipe. "Aye," said Molly, puffing her pipe. Mac puffed his pipe. "You don't think it's Carnage, do you?" he said as he puffed his pipe. His wife puffed her pipe as she gazed out the window onto the town of Leon. Declan puffed his pipe, which is full of tobacco, and continued to ready himself for the day. Molly puffed hers, which was almost always full of locally grown nettles. She believed the scientific term for this particular strain was sour diesel, though she couldn't be sure. Declan eventually left the room, puffing his pipe without saying a word, the two of them never fully acknowledging each other, a marital pattern that had developed over the course of several years. "Carnage," Molly said quietly to herself as she puffed her pipe. "Son of a motherfucking bitch." Chapter 4, an action sequence. Declan stubbed his toe on the way down the hallway. Thud! Chapter 5. It's a good one, right? Chapter 5, involuntary manslaughter. When Ron awoke, he was on the ground. What happened? He asked. You really don't know, said Flappy, sitting up. By the look on Ron's face, Flappy knew Ron hadn't been in control of his own body for several hours. You killed, I don't know how to say this, the people? Most of the people, said Flappy, down by the river, homicide, fundamentally, with a bow and dagger, very efficient homicide. I honestly didn't even know you were armed. Ron rubbed the back of his neck and sat up against the trunk of a tree. Agent of Doom, said Flappy. There was this thing with your eyes, kind of like a glowy situation. I meant the sky went black for f***'s sake. Our heroes hiked into the woods west of the river. After a few miles, they stopped to gather themselves. Flappy, still amused Ron couldn't remember the standoff, hadn't stopped talking about it. Ron, your eyes started to glow, and honestly, in no more than 20 seconds, everyone was dead. Something awoke inside of you and said, oh, feels good to be awake. Oh, interesting predicament. I think, homicide? Yeah, homicide. Let's commit several, perhaps many acts of homicide. Except it wasn't a homicide. It was manslaughter because of how pedestrian and work-like this seemed for you. Zero malice, just very efficient, possibly involuntary manslaughter, but certainly not vehicular, said Flappy. You remember none of this? Flappy, said Levi, not now. If not now, when? Asked Flappy. Anyways, the whole time you were murmuring stuff like, you son of motherfucker, under your breath. And then you were about to kill the last troll, the one who farted, except you didn't. You just held the collar of a shirt and picked him up, and he shat this time, like a no doubt or fecal matter, super most certainly exiting his rectum, just hanging out there. And you were like, you'll have to do better than that. And he tossed him to the ground like a roll of tobacco, old boy. I don't smoke, said Ron, weary from his exploits. As of late, his general life of solitude included very little cardiovascular exercise. I know, old boy, said Flappy. That's the craziest part. The troll, turd waddled and kind of half skipped away. And he looked at no one in particular and was like, anyone got a light? It totally didn't make sense given the lack of setup and circumstance and the fact that you don't smoke. But you said it in a really convincing way, It was like some of the most badass I've ever seen. Ron thought to himself for a moment. He hadn't felt like this in a lifetime. Somehow this was new. Somehow this was different. When he was younger, even a full dozen trolls wouldn't have prompted a blackout, let alone a drastic change in barometric pressure. This all weighed on him, as did the manslaughter, of course. Chapter 6, Journal Entry. Dear Journal, it's me, Ron Carnage, the Thinker Boy. But you know this. You are one of my oldest pals, Journal. If I ever ran for political office, you could dig me down quick. Real quick. If hypothetically a member of the press were to inform me that they had found you, I'd thank them for their time, and I'd promptly jump off the nearest ledge. Ha! Just a thinker boy thinking away. Journal, you old son of a bitch. Anyhow, my life has taken a turn since I last wrote to you, Journal. Levi tracked me down for a quest. So far, we've truly enjoyed our time together. We even ran into Fletcher Murphy's boy at the Fiddle Inn. I hope to write again soon, once the purpose of Levi's visit becomes clear. That is to say that I'd never lie to you, Journal. But hey, totally unrelated, I sure miss Molly. Remember that time at that place all those years ago? Oh, I wonder what she's up to. Ah, nostalgia, the old times. Look at me, Journal, thinking away like a little foolish thinker boy. You really are a son of a bitch, Journal. Until next time, Carnage. Wow, okay, so that was 6 chapters. I left you right before the nerdy octopus comes in as we wrote a chapter to, basically our friend and listener Julie Loki said that we're going to need an animal companion in here. So we wrote a chapter where we kind of interview animal companions and then they're just kind of in the story. But that's about all you're going to get for now. This turned into quite a bit longer than I thought it would be. But I hope you enjoyed it. I think the book starts off pretty strong and it just gets absolutely weirder as it goes on. If you want to learn more about it, go to whoisroncarnage.com. Again, you can read those first few chapters for yourself there. You can sign up for the email list so you can, we can get in touch with you about upcoming events such as the launch on, God, what is that, March 12th? No. March 15th, we're launching this thing. So we've got a couple weeks, not many, but it's going to, God, 2 weeks. Jesus Christ. I need to get working on this. Anyway, I got to go so I can format this damn thing. But I hope you enjoyed the first few chapters. Tweet at us at _reminiscentfm. Let us know what you want to hear from us in the future. If there's any guests you want us to reach out to, we'll try to get them on there for you. In the meantime, please go to whoisroncarnage.com/buy. You can pre-order the ebook there. The print paperback version will be up shortly. We love you all. We'll talk to you next week. Bye. John. I almost forgot. Song of the week, as my dog barks like crazy upstairs. Spencer introduced me to Billie Eilish. Well, I guess Pat, I think he recommended her before. Anyway, God, Billie Eilish, been listening to the song Watch on repeat. It is mind-blowing. Also, my song of the week might be Taylor Swift's new song if she puts it out today. We'll figure that out. All right, love you guys. Bye.